Guys, have you ever looked at one of these new releases and thought, okay, it looks good, but is it really that much better than what we already had? Well, in this video, we're diving into some visually stunning games that have aged like fine wine and still absolutely humiliate a lot of games being made today. 1. Red Dead Redemption. Alright, let's kick things off with a heavy hitter that still blows my mind. I'm talking about the original Red Dead Redemption. Look, I know the sequel is a technical beast, but there is something about the atmosphere of this first game that just hits different. I remember booting this up back in the day and just staring at the sunset over the Mexican border for what felt like hours. The orange hue hitting the dust, man, it was pure poetry. Even today, if you're playing the 4K version, the art direction holds up so well it's actually scary. It has this gritty, spaghetti western soul that a lot of modern open worlds completely miss because they're too busy filling the map with icons and checklist chores. John Marston is such a legendary protagonist, right? He's got that weary, I've seen too much energy that feels incredibly authentic. When you're riding through a sudden thunderstorm in New Austin, the way the lightning flashes illuminate the sagebrush isn't just a flashy effect. It feels oppressive and wild. I honestly think the physics, the way your horse reacts to the terrain, and the weight of the gunplay feels more satisfying than half the shooters hitting the shelves this year. It's not about how many polygons are on the screen, it's about how the world breathes. Playing this again makes me realize that we don't need fancy ray tracing to feel truly immersed in a world. We just need developers who know how to set a mood. It's a masterpiece, plain and simple, and it still puts modern westerns to absolute shame. 2. Ryse, Son of Rome. Next up is a game that I'm convinced was made using some kind of alien tech or black magic. Ryse, Son of Rome was a launch title for the Xbox One. Let that sink in. We are talking about a game from 2013. I replayed this recently and my jaw was literally on the floor. The facial animations on Marius Titus during the cutscenes are straight up better than 90% of the massive RPGs I've played in the last 2 years. You can see the individual pores, the beads of sweat, and that raw, burning revenge in his eyes. It's insane. Now, I'll be the first to admit the gameplay is a bit one note. It's basically a high-budget, quick-time event, and it can get a little repetitive after a few hours of hacking through barbarians. But as a visual showcase, it's a total juggernaut. The way the sunlight glints off the golden Roman armor and the sheer scale of the forest battles, it feels like you're actually playing through a Ridley Scott epic like Gladiator. It honestly makes me frustrated with the state of optimization today. If Crytek could pull off this level of crispness and detail over a decade ago on way weaker hardware, what's the excuse for these blurry, poorly optimized games we're getting now? It's a gorgeous, brutal ride that every graphics nut needs to experience at least once. 3. Assassin's Creed Unity. Okay, we have to talk about the problematic favorite of the bunch. Assassin's Creed Unity had a legendary disaster of a launch. We've all seen the memes of the faceless NPCs, but if you play it today with the latest patches, it's arguably the most stunning game in the entire series. I'll die on this hill. The crowd density in Paris is something Ubisoft hasn't even tried to do again. Walking through a mob of literally thousands of NPCs makes the world feel alive, messy, and revolutionary in a way that the newer, empty landscapes of Valhalla just can't touch. The lighting inside those French palaces, pure insanity. Even though it's baked in and not real time, it looks more natural and soft than most modern lighting setups I see. Arno might be a bit of a polarizing lead, he's definitely a bit of a simp for Elise, but the parkour system here is the peak of the franchise. It's smooth, heavy, and looks like a choreographed movie. Every time I parkour over the rooftops of Paris, I just get annoyed because it feels like the series actually took a massive step backward in terms of physics and environmental detail just to make the maps bigger. It's proof that a dense, handcrafted city will always beat a giant, empty map. It's a visual triumph that was just way too ahead of its time for its own good. 4. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. Finally, for this first group, we've got the absolute king of Naughty Dog's catalog, Uncharted 4. I remember watching the reveal trailer and calling BS, thinking there's no way a console game looks like that. But then I got my hands on it and it actually did. The level of detail here is borderline obsessive. I'm talking about the tiny things, like the way Nate's shirt gets realistically soaked with sweat and mud, or how the wind actually rustles individual blades of grass and leaves in the Madagascar wilderness. It's that lived-in feeling that you just can't fake. The chemistry between Nate and his brother Sam is so grounded, and the motion capture is so precise that you can read their emotions just by looking at a slight squint of the eyes. It's storytelling through detail. When you're sliding down a gravel slope and you see every little rock crumble and bounce realistically, it creates a sense of presence that most AAA games today trade for skins and battle passes. The villains, Rafe and Nadine, feel like genuine threats because the cinematic presentation is so flawless. It's a masterclass in putting art direction over raw power. Even without a fancy modern remake, this game looks like it could have been released yesterday, and it would still be the best looking thing on the market. It's honestly a bit embarrassing for everyone else. Number 5. Batman: Arkham Knight. Man, we really need to stop and tip our hats to what Rocksteady pulled off here. Batman: Arkham Knight came out in 2015, and if you told me it launched this morning, I'd believe you. The rain in this game is on another level. The way the droplets run down Batman's leather cape and how Gotham's asphalt shines with neon reflections is absolutely hypnotic. The noir atmosphere is so thick and well-crafted that you can almost smell the smoke and oil of the city. I remember gliding around the map just to watch the cape react to the wind. This is a level of polish that has pretty much vanished from the industry. A lot of people complain about the Batmobile, and yeah, I agree they went a bit overboard with the tank combat, but the design of that machine, it's brutal in the best way. Scarecrow as the main villain brought a horror vibe that perfectly matched the ultra-realistic visuals. The Joker's face appearing in Batman's hallucinations has a level of detail in the skin and teeth that straight up humiliates a lot of so-called next-gen games. And it's wild to think this game runs on a heavily modified Unreal Engine 3. It just proves that when an art team is talented and given time, they can work miracles. This is the definitive Batman game, and nothing else has come close to this visual benchmark since. 6. Crysis. But can it run Crysis? That phrase became a meme for a reason. The original Crysis came out in 2007, and the fact that it still shows up on lists of games that humiliate modern titles nearly 20 years later is pure insanity. Back then, I didn't even have a PC capable of running it. I had to watch it at a friend's house, and we just stood there in awe, staring at palm leaves snapping and bending under gunfire. The global illumination in this game was something we only saw in Pixar movies at the time. You walk through the jungle and the sunlight pours through the trees in a way that feels like raw realism, without any fake-looking filters. The freedom you get with the nanosuit is what keeps the gameplay addictive even today. Maximum armor, maximum strength. You feel like a predator. The enemy isn't just the opposing soldiers or the aliens, but the environment itself, which is almost entirely destructible. Watching a wooden shack explode into pieces after you throw a soldier into it is still more satisfying than most scripted explosions we see today. This was a game that demanded powerful hardware because it refused to cut corners. It delivered full-on simulation. If you've never played the original version or even the remaster, do yourself a favor. This is a historic landmark that still goes toe-to-toe with any modern shooter. 7. Infamous Second Son. This one is a case study in how to do particle effects right. Infamous Second Son was one of the early PS4 exclusives, and man, Sucker Punch did not mess around. Delson's powers, smoke, neon, video are a visual spectacle that I honestly haven't seen topped. When you absorb neon from a sign in Seattle and start running up walls, leaving that glowing trail of light behind you, it's jaw-dropping. The reflections and puddles on the ground and the neon lights bouncing off Delson's denim jacket create a unique aesthetic that feels vibrant and alive. Seattle is portrayed in this rainy, slightly melancholic way that I absolutely love, and moving through the city with that level of fluidity is incredibly satisfying. Delson is that kind of rebellious with a cause protagonist you can't help but like, and the story about the government hunting down conduits adds some real weight to the experience. But what really hooks me is the combat. Every smoke explosion feels like thousands of individual ash particles flying across the screen without the game ever stuttering. It's the kind of optimization we really miss today, where everything seems to need a 50 gigabyte day one patch just to work. It's stylish, fast, and absurdly beautiful, even by 2026 standards. Eight. The Order 1886. Closing out this section, we have the game that might be the closest video games have ever come to feeling like a movie. The Order 1886 is controversial, I know. It's short, packed with cutscenes, and the black bars on the screen annoyed a lot of people at the time. But visually, my friends, this game is downright unfair. The recreation of Victorian London with a steampunk twist is immaculate. Material quality is where it truly shines. You can feel the weight of the fabric in the clothing, the sheen of metal on the experimental weapons, and the texture of aged wood inside the taverns. The visual fidelity here genuinely makes you question whether time has even passed. The story of the Knights of the Round Table hunting werewolves with Tesla-powered weapons is an incredible premise. Galahad is a stoic, grounded protagonist, and the enemies lurking in London's fog are genuinely unsettling. The combat is a fairly standard cover-based shooter. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but every shot feels powerful thanks to the sound design and environmental destruction effects. Yes, it's a short experience, but it's so dense and visually rich that I'd take these 6 hours of pure visual indulgence over 100 hours in a generic, lifeless open world any day. If you want to see what a console can do when it focuses 100% on fidelity, this is the game. 9. Sleeping Dogs. Man, if there's one game that deserves a massive apology from the gaming world, it's Sleeping Dogs. I remember picking this up thinking it was just a GTA clone in Hong Kong, but I was so wrong. The atmosphere in this game is absolutely thick. When night falls and the rain starts pouring, the neon signs reflect off the wet pavement in a way that honestly puts some modern ray-traced games to shame. It's got this gritty, cinematic martial arts movie vibe that feels so visceral. Walking through the night markets, hearing the sizzle of the street food and the chatter of the NPCs, it's pure immersion. Wei Shen is such a badass, tortured protagonist, caught between his duty as a cop and his loyalty to the Sun On Yi. The combat isn't just mindless shooting, it's brutal, crunching kung fu, where you're slamming heads into AC units and using the environment in ways that feel way more interactive than most open worlds today. Even the driving has this arcade-like weight that makes chasing down rival gangs through narrow alleys a total blast. It's a tragedy we never got a sequel, because the level of detail Square Enix packed into this version of Hong Kong is legendary. It's a game with a heartbeat, and visually it still holds its own against any modern urban sandbox. 10. Dying Light. I still remember the first time the sun went down in Dying Light and that terrifying "good night, good luck" message popped up. My heart was actually racing. Techland did something magical here. They created a world that feels decaying and beautiful all at once. The lighting system as the day transitions to night is some of the best I've ever seen. The way the long shadows stretch across the rooftops of Haran makes every parkour jump feel 10 times more intense. The textures on the zombies, seeing the rotting skin and the tattered clothes up close, is still genuinely unsettling even years later. Kyle Crane might start off as a generic mercenary, but the way you grow with his parkour skills makes the gameplay loop so addictive. There's a weight to the movement that most first-person games fail to capture. You really feel the impact when you drop-kick a zombie off a building. The villains, like Ryse, are just pure, chaotic evil, which fits the desperate vibe of the city perfectly. When you look at the sequel, a lot of fans, including me, felt like the original actually had a more consistent and realistic art style. It doesn't rely on flashy colors. It relies on grit, blood, and a terrifyingly realistic atmosphere that still makes me look over my shoulder when I'm playing in the dark. Far Cry 4. Everyone always talks about the third game, but for me, Far Cry 4 is the visual peak of that classic Ubisoft era. The setting of Kyrat is just breathtaking. I remember the first time I climbed a radio tower and just looked out over the Himalayas. The draw distance was insane for its time. You've got these lush green valleys clashing against the harsh, snowy peaks of the mountains, and the fur tech on the animals? Man, the honey badgers and tigers look better than some creatures in games that came out last month. It's a vibrant, colorful world that feels dangerous at every turn. Pagan Men is easily one of my favorite villains of all time. He's charismatic, stylish, and absolutely unhinged, and the game's presentation makes every interaction with him feel like a scene from a high-end thriller. The gameplay didn't try to reinvent the wheel, but it perfected the formula. Flying a buzzer over a fortress while your buddy snipes from a hillside is peak gaming fun. There's a certain crispness to the image quality in Far Cry 4 that I feel got lost in the later entries. It doesn't have that weird blurriness or heavy film grain a lot of modern titles use to hide low resolutions. It's sharp, it's grand, and it still feels like a true next-gen experience. 12. Quantum Break. Now, this is a game that I feel like people completely slept on. Remedy Entertainment are masters of tech, and Quantum Break was basically them flexing their muscles. The stutters in time, where the whole world just freezes or starts looping in a glitchy mess, are some of the most impressive visual effects I've ever witnessed. Seeing a ship crash into a bridge and then just pause in midair with thousands of pieces of debris floating around, it's a technical marvel. The way light bends and distorts around Jack Joyce's time powers is something that still looks futuristic today. The facial capture here is next level too, since they used real actors like Sean Ashmore and Lance Reddick, RIP to a legend. The cutscenes look incredibly lifelike. It's a weird mix of a TV show and a game, and while that was controversial, you can't deny the production value. The story is a mind-bending time travel trip that actually rewards you for paying attention to the details. I think the reason it humbles modern games is the sheer ambition of its physics engine. Everything in a room reacts when time breaks down. It's a heavy, cinematic experience that pushes the hardware to its absolute limit, and it still looks better than most of the stuff we see on Game Pass today. Number 13. Metro Exodus. If you want to talk about a game that makes your graphics card sweat and your heart sink, it's Metro Exodus. I remember stepping out of the tunnels of Moscow for the first time and seeing that frozen wasteland. It was breathtaking and terrifying all at once. 4A games are absolute wizards when it comes to lighting. Even without the enhanced edition, the way the sunlight hits the rusted metal of the Aurora or how the glow of your lighter illuminates a dark, spider-infested corner is just peak immersion. It's got this tactile feel where everything feels heavy and dangerous. You're not just playing a game, you're surviving in a world that feels like it's actually rotting around you. Artyom's journey across Russia is so personal and grounded, and the chemistry with Anna and the rest of the crew makes the stakes feel real. The villains aren't just the mutants, it's the environment itself and the desperate humans clinging to power in the ruins. I love how the game forces you to actually look at your physical map and check your gear. There's no cluttered HUD breaking the magic. When you're creeping through the Caspian Desert during a sandstorm and the dust starts caked onto your gas mask, it's a level of detail that puts most modern survival shooters to shame. It's a gritty, beautiful, and haunting masterpiece that proves art direction and technical lighting go hand in hand. Number 14, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Come on, we couldn't have a list like this without the GOAT, right? The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt came out in 2015, and it basically redefined what an open world should look like. I've spent hundreds of hours in this world, and I still find myself stopping Roach on a hilltop just to watch the wind blow through the trees in Velen. The way the foliage reacts to storms is something I still haven't seen done better in 2024. It's not just about pretty graphics, it's about a world that feels lived in, ancient, and full of secrets. Every swamp, every crowded street in Novigrad, and every peak in Skellige feels like it has 1,000 years of history behind it. Geralt is probably the most iconic protagonist of the last decade, and the way CD Projekt Red captured his subtle expressions during those deep, branching conversations is just incredible. The villains, like the Crones or Eredin, are designed with such a distinct, creepy aesthetic that they stay burned in your brain. Even before the next-gen update, the game had a scale and a sense of atmosphere that modern RPGs are still trying to replicate. It's a game where the sunsets feel warm and the monsters feel truly grotesque. It's the gold standard for how to build a world that stays beautiful no matter how many years pass, and it honestly makes a lot of current-gen RPGs look a bit generic and empty by comparison. Killzone Shadowfall. And finally, we're closing out with a game that was literally a PS4 launch title, which is mind-blowing when you look at it. Killzone Shadowfall is over a decade old, yet it still has some of the cleanest, most impressive lighting and material effects I've ever seen. I remember the opening mission in the city of Vecta, the lens flares, the clean futuristic architecture, and the sheer amount of detail on the Helghast armor. It was the first time I felt like next gen had truly arrived. It has this crisp, high-contrast look that feels incredibly premium, even today. Guerrilla Games always pushes the hardware to its breaking point, and it shows. The gameplay is a bit more open than the older Killzone games, giving you this owl's drone that adds a cool tactical layer to the combat. While the story might not be as legendary as some others on this list, the world building between the Vectans and the Helghast is super interesting, and the protagonist, Lucas Kellen, gets caught in a really gray, messy conflict. The way the shadows cast in real time as you move through the neon-lit slums is something I still see modern games struggling to do without major performance hits. It's a visual powerhouse that reminds us that launch titles used to be absolute benchmarks. If you want to see a game that still looks like it's from the future, this is the one. So, there you have it, guys. 15 games that prove newer doesn't always mean better. It's honestly a bit of a wake-up call, right? Seeing games from 2013 or 2015 hold their own, and sometimes even stomp on titles coming out right now, makes you realize how much art direction and optimization actually matter. It's not just about throwing more power at the screen, it's about that passion and attention to detail that makes a world feel real. But look, I want to hear from you. Which one of these games do you think aged the best? Is there a game I missed that still makes your jaw drop every time you boot it up?